In today's world, the contest between the US and China has become one of the most significant geopolitical stories. But why is this happening? At its core, the reason is pretty straightforward. The US is doing exactly what any top global power would do when it sees a competitor on the rise. Historically, every dominant power has fought to stay on top, and the US is no different. It's trying to push China down to maintain its position. The only thing that's surprising here is how intense and far-reaching this contest has become. But what's really at stake? What are the United States' long-term goals? Is it about slowing down China's economic power? Is it about overthrowing the Chinese government? Or is it about containing China's influence in the same way the US once dealt with the Soviet Union? These are critical questions, and the answers ain't as clear as you might think. Before diving deeper, don't forget to give this video a like and share it with anyone curious about global power dynamics. Your support really helps the channel grow. To understand this rivalry, we first need to look at the US strategy. As mentioned, the US isn't doing anything new. History shows that whenever a rising power threatens the dominance of a leading one, the response is almost always the same: economic and political measures to prevent that competitor from overtaking the leader. Whether it's trade sanctions, military posturing, or diplomatic pressure, the US is using all the tools in its arsenal to slow down China. But here is the catch. While the tactics may be familiar, the United States endgame is not so obvious. Many around the world are asking, what exactly does America want? One possibility is that the US is trying to contain China economically. Trade tariffs, sanctions on Chinese tech companies, and limits on technology transfers suggest that Washington is keen on keeping China from climbing the economic ladder too fast. But let's face it, China's economy is enormous and intertwined with the global economy. So can the US really stop China's economic growth? Probably not. Another theory is that the US wants to overthrow the Chinese Communist Party and replace it with a more Western-friendly government. However, this is widely seen as unrealistic. The Chinese government has a strong control over its political system, and any attempt to destabilize it would likely backfire, making China even more anti-West. Then there is the idea of containing China, similar to what the US did with the Soviet Union during the Cold War. This would mean limiting China's global influence and preventing it from expanding its power. But again, China's situation is different. Unlike the Soviet Union, China is already deeply integrated into the global economy, making it nearly impossible to isolate. So what's the US hoping to achieve? It seems the strategy is less about finding a clear solution and more about buying time. The US wants to delay China's rise for as long as possible, but no one knows how long that can last or what the final outcome will be. Now let's flip the script. What's China after in this geopolitical chess match? To answer that, we need to understand China's historical perspective. For many in the West, China's rise seems sudden and aggressive, but for the Chinese, this is more of a comeback. China has a history that spans thousands of years, marked by cycles of rise and decline. From the perspective of many Asians, Africans, and Latin Americans, China's rise is just a return to its historical place as a global power. For most of the last 4,000 years, China has been a dominant civilization, except for the century of humiliation from 1842 to 1949, when it was weakened by Western imperialism. Now that China is back on the world stage, many see this as a natural development, not a threat. What's interesting is how different parts of the world view China. While 12% of the world's population lives in the West, 88% lives outside of it, and many of these countries view China's rise positively. They see China as a potential partner in trade and development, not a rival. In fact, China's economic relationships have been expanding at an incredible pace. For example, 20 years ago, Brazil exported just $1 billion worth of goods to China annually. Today, it takes Brazil just 60 hours to export that same amount. This kind of trade growth shows why so many countries are eager to work with China despite pressure from the US. If you are finding these insights valuable, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take on what's driving the US-China contest. One of the most fascinating aspects of this rivalry is how countries outside the West view it. Nations in Asia, Africa, and Latin America often look at China not through the lens of Western media, but through their own economic interests. While the term wolf warrior diplomacy is thrown around in the West to describe China's aggressive diplomatic stance, many countries don't see it that way. Instead, they focus on what China can offer in terms of trade, investment, and infrastructure development. For them, the question isn't whether they should align with the US or China, but how they can benefit from both. And when it comes to trade, China is becoming a far more significant partner for many of these countries. The US still has influence, but China's trade relationships are growing faster and deeper. So where does this leave us? The US-China contest is far from over, and both sides are playing a long game. The US is using its traditional playbook to slow down China's rise, while China is steadily building its influence across the globe, particularly in the global south. Neither side is likely to back down anytime soon, and the rest of the world will have to navigate this complex landscape carefully. What's clear is that the global power dynamics are shifting, and the outcome of this contest will shape the future of international relations for years to come. The rivalry between the US and China is one of the defining issues of our time, and it's rooted in the predictable behaviors of global powers. The US is trying to hold on to its position, while China is reclaiming its historical status. As the world watches, countries are making their choices based on economic opportunities rather than ideological alignments. This power struggle will continue to evolve, and we'll be here to analyze every step of the way. If you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell to stay updated on future content. Thanks for watching.